Eventually, we approached the hill, and as the nature around us deepened, we caught sight of the building. A Japanese-style roof and rhododendrons greeted us, along with the entryway that sported a small placard reading the Student Council Room. As we came in, I noticed the bench behind the building. The hush all around it made the place feel like a retreat that had been set up in the back of the woods. The building looks quite old, made from wood plank walls. In this day and age, its architecture was simple and straightforward. It felt as though it would collapse with a slight push. I heard it used to be the calligraphy club's room. I see. Memories of my old calligraphy lessons flooded back to me. I remember being highly praised when I wrote characters by mimicking my teacher's copybook. At the time, that sort of thing was one of my strong suits. Seems like there would be a lot of bugs. Seeing the many colored flowers in bloom and the overflowing nature all around this place, I couldn't help making a grim prediction. Can't stand bugs? I'm not sure there are any people who can stand them. I agreed. Nanami Toko smiled dryly. So she doesn't like bugs. I felt like I'd finally seen a side of Nanami Toko that was human. Everything else about her seemed entirely too carefully curated, though not in a bad way. Please excuse our intrusion. Nanami Toko went in first. I repeated the same words and followed in after her. The inside of the room seemed just as archaic as the outside. A long table had been placed in the center, and the smell of dried trees wafted up from the floor. The walls to either side of us sported large windows that let all the sunlight in, filling every last nook and cranny with brightness. A group comprised of two boys and one girl surrounded the long table. I think they must have all been upperclassmen. We came to join. To join? Not to observe. The girl with short hair, who I could tell was an upperclassman by the color of her ribbon on her chest, opened her eyes wide. If that's all right. Looks like we got some real motivated newbies. Why don't you take a seat for now? The boy sitting in the middle gestured at the seats across from him. A light-haired boy sitting across from him moved chairs to clear space for us. Sorry to trouble you. No worries. He gave us a good-natured smile and sat down beside the other upperclassmen. The three of them faced the two of us, almost like we were in an interview. In fact, I suppose that's exactly what it was. I'm Kuse. I'm a second year. The boy in the middle introduced himself. And he's a second year, and she's a second year too, he added, indicating the remaining two members. Then, as if predicting that we would be wondering why there weren't any third years, he went straight into an explanation. When the new school year starts, most of the third years retire, since the election happens in May and all. The student council election. Yeah. That's so soon, I thought. First years presumably got to vote too, but wouldn't we start out not really knowing much about the school? Although you won't see much of this upper-class man either, even though he hasn't retired. The black-haired upper-class man interjected. The upper-class man named Kuso winced awkwardly. How could you tell them that? I know it's true, but still, Kuso-senpai admitted. Laughing, the black-haired upper-class man stood up, as Kuso continued to protest. I'm in the kendo club too, and things get pretty busy over there, okay? And yet he still has in his head to try to becoming a student council president anyway. With that explanation, the upper-class man brought over two coffee cups. She placed one in front of me and one in front of Nanami Toko. The steam and fragrance wafted off the liquid as she poured it into the mugs. I'm sorry, we shouldn't be having an upper-class man serve us like this. Don't worry about it, I'm just happy to have some charming new underclassmen. Thank you very much. Accepting the mug, Nanami Toko held it, as though she were cradling it. As she waited for it to cool, she asked, "So, do you think you'll be elected as a student council president?" "Depends on who the other candidates are. If no one else is really motivated, then it could happen." Kuse Senpai smiled, as though he was banking on that. Nanami Toko's eyes narrowed, as if to say, "I want it too." Our school tends to be pretty passionate about events like this, though. It might end up being pretty tough this year. Events, you say? Nanami Toko's reaction seemed to hint at something. I glanced at her curiously, wondering what about Dad had caught her attention. She smiled ambiguously, almost as though she might have noticed my gaze, and then brought the cup to her lips. "Oh, I forgot to ask. Cream or sugar?" the upper class man asked. Nanami Toko thought for a moment, and then answered, "Two creams, please." I decided to memorize Nanami Toko's request. If I was going to join the student council, such information would probably be useful on many occasions. Then the upper class man's eyes turned to me. "And you?" My name is Seki." "What about you, Seki-san?" "Black is fine, thank you." I preferred my coffee unsweetened. "So you want to join the student council too, Seki-san?" Before I answered, I glanced at Nanami Toko. When I saw her nod slightly, I made up my mind too. "Yes." Two new members out of nowhere. Seriously, what a huge relief. Things are gonna be so much easier now. As I observed Kusi Senpai's excitement, I privately decided not to vote for him. If things are easier on everyone else, then I don't have to worry about you guys so much, right? He added. See, it works out for everyone. Well, putting that aside, one of the upper class men cut him off briskly, while the other male upper class man watched their exchange in silence. We basically do something every day after school. If you don't have any other plans, please come by. Okay. Oh, but I might not be able to stay for long on the days I have lessons. What are you studying? It was Nanami Toko who asked me that, not one of the upper class men. Ikebana, flower arrangement. Oh! For some reason, she clapped briefly. Maybe my answer lived up to her expectations. But I used to take a lot of other lessons too. There had been piano, calligraphy, swimming. I hadn't really stuck with any of them long enough to claim mastery though. And it wasn't just my lessons that tended to end prematurely. Glancing discreetly at Nanami Toko, I wondered whether I would be able to carry things through to the end this time. Nanami held the coffee creamers without opening them as she looked around the student council room. It was as though she were searching for something, her eyes scanning evenly from the ceiling to the floor. What kind of ties did Nanami Toko feel to the student council? Was there something specific she wanted to do, or did the student council itself mean something to her? There still wasn't much I knew about Nanami Toko. Perhaps that was why she seemed perfect in my eyes. In which case, I wondered if she would still seem just as beautiful to me, if I knew everything there was to know about her.